All right, everyone, let's get back into this. Let me just pull up the game here real quick, and I started us off on the stats page just so that we can go over the stats and get back up to snuff so that we know what we've got going on for ourselves. So, for those of you just jumping in, this is the Magician's Workshop by Choice of Games. It is a choose your own adventure style game set in Renaissance Italy. We are at a workshop similar to one of the workshops that Leonardo da Vinci might have had back in that era. He is around, though currently not in Florence, where this is set. And we are just in the point of history where the Medici have been in charge of Florence, been exiled from Florence, and have returned to Florence with the backing of both the Pope and a Spanish army. And they have retaken Florence for their own. Um, However, we are an apprentice in a workshop. And although there will be many political decisions in this story, as we've seen in the first two chapters, we are unfortunately kind of in charge now, or at least one of the people in charge, because the master of our workshop, whose name has never been given, has died, has been murdered. And he ended up in the Arno, which is a river that runs through Florence. So it's been crazy. Chapter one was all about finding out what kind of person we are. We decided to be a person who is non-binary and goes by they them pronouns, called Luca di Firenze, because Luca di Firenze means Luca of Florence. And so we are one of the top 3 apprentices of our workshop, along with a couple of others. And so our stats are as follows. We are at a healthy 61%, though the workshop morale is still very neutral. In Choice of Games, 50% is always neutral, or sort of zero in any other game. We have 2 lira at the moment, which is not bad. It is 20 soldi makes a lira, so we effectively have 40 soldi. But not enough, but it's still very small wealth. Our workshop is also running low on supplies, so we will have to spend our own lira on supplies at some point. We have a fresco that needs to be done. We have not run into the point of the story where we can work on it, so it has not been begun. As far as our magic capability, we chose to be an alchemist primarily. We can dabble in animation. We have not gotten any better at it, but we are definitely not as terrible at it as soothsaying, much to our mother's chagrin. As for our skills, we are neutrally reasoning. We have a touch of artistry. Dexterity is our highest trait. Our confidence has taken a hit. We have a touch of guile, and our strength has also taken a hit. We have managed to poke our reasoning back up from taking a hit, so that's pretty okay. As far as our, you can see that they run more on sliding scale. We are adaptable, charming, bold, good-willed, faithful, and orderly versus all of this other stuff. As for the relationships, Piero and Fiammetta are the other 2 top apprentices at the workshop, and we are the 3 of us basically in charge. We are slightly we have a slightly better relationship with Piero just because we find him to be uh, less angry all the time than Fiammetta, as you can see. Andrea is another fair, like I would say, 4th in the whole apprentices thing. Andrea doesn't really run the show, being a model primarily, androgynous model, but Andrea is definitely someone that we count on for information. Stella is our mother, and as you can see, mother is not happy that we did not take after her as a soothsayer. We have met Giovanni de Medici, the I want to say count, but that's not correct. The cardinal, pardon, the cardinal of Florence. It was at his party that we learned that our master had died and had been found in the Arno. But he thinks of us well. He technically owes us a favor. We decided not to take any payment he could have offered immediately, and he currently owes us a favor. So that is why he thinks of us so well. Uh, Niccolo Machiavelli is actually a dear family friend. He ruled Florence for a period of time until the Medici came back and ousted him. He is currently in exile on the outskirts, basically in a small village next door to Florence, and we visit him on occasion when we need help sorting out what we need to do next. So we did that in chapter 2, and as you can see, Machiavelli is slightly familiar with us and likes us a little bit. Dangerous is basically the head of the thieves and assassins in the city. For the Thieves and Assassins Guild, very Assassin's Creed style, I might add, though less white robes and more actual black. She thinks we're okay. Not this, we probably could have made her happier, but we botched it, so it's fine. Conrad is a little, well, Conrad grew up with us. He is originally from Germany, but he managed to come to Florence when he was a child for education by his aunt, and he has been in Florence ever since. He does not work in our workshop. He actually works in the government of Florence, but we have been besties forever, and we've just recently realized that we might, in fact, have a crush on him too. Alfonsina Orsini married into the Medici family. She has a commission with us, as does Giovanni de' Medici. And Henrique of the Congo is from Africa, came to Florence to study religion, also has a pending project with our workshop, none of which we know of. Oh, I'm sorry. Dangerous also has a project, not Giovanni. I misremembered for a moment. Yeah, so we have these 3 people all with pending projects that are due at the end of the week that we know nothing about. It's a problem. As for our reputation, we are neutral with the Medici and the Confraternity. The Confraternity is the organization that runs the artisan guilds, of which our workshop is part of. So we will have to hopefully impress them soon to find out who becomes the new master of our workshop. Whether it be one of us, 2 of us, all 3 of us, or somebody. But we have managed to gain a little bit of the respect of the people. So the people of Florence, which is a very important aspect of our workshop continuing to run, seem to like at least us as Luca. I'm not sure if that also bleeds over to the workshop itself, but I'm assuming so. And unfortunately, we have lost some of the respect of the workshop by being late to the funeral. Whoopsie daisies. But our donkey was being very annoying, so that's why we ended up late. So that's where we stand. We have only managed to find a single achievement, but we are well on our way. And now it is time for chapter 3, the fresco. You wake in your own bedroom to the murmur of argumentative voices that are making some effort to stay low, but not a great deal of effort. Fiametta's voice, a constant sardonic growl, and Piero's, melodious but slightly ironic in its own way. Flat, detached, as though his thoughts are always just a little distracted from whatever whatever conversation he's having. You keep your eyes shut for one more merciful moment, despite the fact that you can feel the more on your face. Ugh, I apologize for the dog barking in the background, but someone has walked by the house and she must keep us safe. It's really kind of sweet and ridiculous all at once. Anyway. We don't need to follow the master's plan or his politics, Fiametta was saying. Our clients will understand that we have to make a fresh start. A fresh start means the 3 of us on the road with a rickety cart and a tray full of quackeries, Piero says. We are nothing without the master's relationships. We can't afford. Luca, for God's sake, we can see you're awake. Get out of bed and save me from this. You open one eyelid and peer up at the room. Fiametta is pacing by the window. Piero leans, arms crossed against the wall. I'm going to have to enchant new locks for this place, you grumble. Come on, Luca, Fiametta says. The master always assigns the team leaders at the weekly meeting, so this afternoon the apprentices will be wondering who's leading their team that week. Without the master, we need to decide. well, how we'll decide. And we have to go see your mother about that coded note before we start the day's work. The three of you have spent so many days and nights working together that it isn't unusual for you to wake up in their presence. Still, you're usually wearing a little more than your chemise under a blanket. It has the effect of making you consider your reactions. Fiammetta and Piero are both your comrades and your rivals. Any feelings other than friendship could factor into your decision in the next few days. So, what are our feelings about them? Are we attracted to both of them? Are we attracted to Fiammetta? Are we attracted to Piero? Or are we not attracted to either of them? We have had, this is the third time or the fourth time now that we have had choices on who we are attracted to. Hello, Winter Fairy. Winter Fairy has decided we're not attracted to our fellow comrades slash rivals. Trav, the reason why we are obsessed with the romance is because we chose that we might consider any and all romances. That's why. There was a decision made early on. Otherwise, I think these decisions would be different. At least that's my running theory. This is our blind run through this story. So I'm not entirely certain that we may always end up with these. But it looks like everyone's like, nah, we're attracted to a couple of people, and these two are not it. So we are not attracted to either of them. You're fond of both of them when they aren't driving you up the wall, but there's no mistaking your friendship for either of them for anything else. Any time now, sleepyhead, Piero says. All right, turn away, I'm dressing. As you roll out of bed, the city bells ring to greet the dawn. A half dozen deep tolls, and then a lighter, brighter cacophony, like the twittering of birds. But this is the city, not the countryside, and most of the birds are pigeons and swallows. And instead of the sounds of nature, you hear the roll of cartwheels, the clop of horses, laughing, of stall keepers preparing for their day. Do you choose more masculine or feminine clothing today? So we have neither in particular, more masculine or more feminine. Um, I'm not entirely certain whether they are just to give us a choice in the matter or whether it does affect the story in some way. It's possible that being more masculine will affect certain relationships with certain NPCs and more feminine, different relationships with different NPCs. I'm not entirely certain. I haven't played, this is the first time we've played this story. So I've not figured it out in choice of games stuff in general yet either. It could just be superfluous, but it could matter. Uncertain. But one, two, or three. Person or female. Those are the key words. Feel free to use numbers or keywords. I will take either. Please chat, please weigh in. I don't like to make decisions. That's why I have you guys, and you're all amazing at the decision making. Well, so far the ones have it. Anyone else is welcome to weigh in. Neither in particular it is then. Awesome. You dress quickly in slash sleeves, a lace ruff, puffed breeches, and high-heeled shoes. So, we'll have to assign the teams of apprentices at the meeting, you say. Easy enough. We'll do as we always did, even under the master. Each of us will lead one. Yes, but how do we decide who gets which team this week? Piero says. I can make a list up this morning. Fiammetta shakes her head. I'm not having you choose my team for me, thank you very much. We'll choose at the meeting, you say, putting up a hand to silence them. You don't have time for them to argue this morning. So, we could let the apprentices decide. They should share in the decision making. We could take turns to select our teams. As leaders, we must take charge now. We could let chance decide. Patterns often emerge from chaos in interesting ways. Or we'll let chance decide and may divine will guide us. So, I think these are all trait-based decisions. I know the last one is faith. I'm not entirely certain what the rest of them are tagged to. Winter Fairy says 3. Patterns often emerge from the chaos in interesting ways. Who else wants to weigh in? We have 1, 2, 3, or 4. We have apprentices, turns, patterns, and divine. Trav says 2, taking turns. So I have a vote for patterns and a vote for turns. Anyone else want to weigh in one way or the other? Make it easy on us. Not that I have any problems deciding myself. I just like it when chat does. It's much more fun that way. Letting the apprentices decide has its ups and downs. It does mean that the apprentices who likes particular people will tend to choose them. However, the teams might be lopsided. They won't be necessarily be even. Taking turns to select our teams means that we will get some of the people that we appreciate for their skill sets, but we will have to lose out on others. It's very much like, taking turns picking teams for softball or whatever. But it does show leadership, and it does show that we can get along. Letting chance decide patterns emerging from chaos has not entirely sure what they mean, because this is our first run through, our blind run through of this story. But either patterns or divine, I mean, logically speaking, they end up just about the same, but the way that people feel about it will be different, of course. I actually think this is probably the strongest that we have, though I do not know, again, what trait this is pegged to. So we'll find out. We'll take turns and select our teams. All right, that's settled, Piero says. If you're happy with that, Fiammetta. She nods. Frost. Fine. So order. Two is order. Yeah, we do like to be ordered. You lock the door to your room, and the 3 of you go down the stairs past the entry to the workshop where Andrea is talking with some of the apprentices. Luca, will we continue the fresco today? Andrea calls as you smile and trot past. Yes, of course. Meet me at the terrace. At Terce, you say. I'm not sure I said that wrong. Terce bells ring at the beginning of the working day, so that doesn't give you much time, but your mother's house isn't far. The sign of the hanged man. Everything crumbles to dust eventually, even magic. But animated items tend to last a long time because the magic in them literally gives them new life. That's why wealthy families call in animators to freshen up their old furnishings. The story goes that the first flying carpet wasn't meant to leave the ground at all, merely a brush up animation of worn silk fibers that went out of control. So it is that the hanged man in front of your mother's ramshackle house just outside the city walls looks exactly as it has your entire life. The yellow hose have not worn out at all, not even at the top of the apparatus, where the wooden knee within rubs against the wooden beam jutting out from the gable. Suspended from one bent leg, the man might have lost a little of his stuffing to gravity over years. In fact, you see some straw scattered on the cobbles. But his painted face and the red tunic are as bright as ever, and with one wooden hand he still beckons travelers within. The hanged man is a familiar symbol to anyone who might be looking for a soothsayer, since many street soothsayers have little talent or training and use cards. Stella does too, sometimes, although she doesn't need to. For some skittish clients, it reduces the discomfort of having one's own thoughts laid bare. A potential client doesn't need to know how to read to know that here, in this house, lives a soothsayer. But of course, Stella doesn't turn up her nose at more educated and wealthy clients either. The soothsayer's den. You raise your fist to knock on the door, but it opens before you can, and you stumble into your mother, who closes the door behind her. Your mother is a tall, willowy woman whose gray hair flows over her shoulders, giving her a witch like appearance that is not accidental. It irritated you when you were younger. Now, how do we feel about our mother now? Have we grown fond of adopting an eccentric manner? We have not. We've worked hard to understand her way of seeing the world, which I believe is reason, or not necessarily reason, but it's one of the traits attached to that. I see that the world is a hard place that forces people into deception. We're still irritated because we need to fit into society, not stand out, or still irritated because if we want magic to be respected, we can't act like eccentric charlatans. So these are once more attached to traits. Pretty sure. Because this is the eccentric, this is the opposite of eccentric. Yeah, there's a couple of them in here. So 1, 2, 3, or 5. Fond, understanding, deception, fit in, or respected. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. What would chat like to do? How do we feel about our mother, Stella? Fond, understanding, deception, fit in, respected. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. You guys tell me. Trav says 5. We're still irritated. We want magic to be respected. We do work for a workshop after all. Respect us. Anyone else want to weigh in on the matter? Five it is. We are still irritated. If we want magic to be respected, we can't act like eccentric charlatans. Oop, Winter Fairy agreed, yes. Stella does not ask whether you're well, as you imagine an ordinary mother might. Instead, she peers at you, her black eyes seeing right through you. You need something, she said, confused. Can we talk inside? It's a private matter. Stella looks at Piero and Fiammetta. Piero and Fiammetta are friends. You can trust them. I wonder. Stella glares at Piero and Fiammetta each in turn. Suppose you better come in, she says at last, strangely reluctant to let you into the house. Stella's house. The familiar musty smell greets you. The familiar musty, dusty smell greets you while your eyes adjust to the shapes in the shadows. The rounds of cushions and rugs, the embroidery faded and frayed. The curtains have never been opened so long as you can remember. Stella's clients tend to be nervous about privacy. We'll need a little light for this task, Fiammetta says, and she cups her hand around the lamp on the table, bringing a warm glow to the room with one of the first tricks the master teaches his students, a combination of animation and alchemy. You pull the note out of your purse and hand it to Stella. Can you make any sense of this? She holds it to the light, frowning. Well, this is interesting. This is interesting indeed. Where did you get this, Luca? Will you keep the existence of the man in the shadows a secret? Perhaps if more people know about him, you'll be less vulnerable to any evil he might have planned. But it might be worth keeping your relationship secret if he offers you some personal advantage. It's never easy to lie to your mother without her realizing, and she won't like it if you do. Will she believe that you're simply being cautious if you keep your secret, and that it has nothing to do with your trust in her? If you tell her that you're being followed by a mysterious figure, she'll appreciate the gesture of trust, but she might interfere and endanger herself. And she's not the only one you'd be telling. The more information you share with Piero and Fiammetta, the closer you'll be working with them and the more your fates will be entwined. So, we can say, I received a note from a silent figure in a broad hat who keeps to the shadows. We can say, I think it's prudent not to speak about that for now, or we can say, I found it in the street. Trav says one because she's a soothsayer, and if she's any good, she'll know this already. Plus, soothsaying is our lowest magical skill, and so any chance we have of our head is low, 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 low. Probably impossible. So I agree with Chad. We should just tell all. Stella's eyes widen and she steps in close. Piero and Fiammetta look at you, then each other. Do you know what Luca is talking about? Fiammetta demands. Piero shakes his head. No, it's the first I'm hearing about it. Stella leans in close, hisses in your ear. Have you ever heard of Monacelio? Monaciello? Sorry, my Italian is terrible. Monaciello. You shake your head, and so do Piero and Fiammetta. Stella grunts. You young people, you don't know anything. The Monaciello is not a man, although he looks like a gentleman in a broad-brimmed hat. Ah, yes, this sounds familiar? He is a creature of secrets, so he travels in dark places, tunnels, shadows. A very dangerous being. He's usually found in Naples, though. That's very odd that he should be here. I wonder if he left when the French invaded Naples. Animals leave besieged cities, you know, and so do fairies and demons and other things. She holds up the note. Gifts from the Monaciello could be dangerous. Can you tell me what it says? You speak more loudly now, bringing Piero and Fiammetta back into the conversation. She shakes her head. Divination of codes and alphabets is not my area. I'd need someone like Judah Leon Abravanel. I don't know the name, Piero says. One of the best scholars and best soothsayers I've ever known. Lives in Venice most of the time, but he's here for the reinstatement of the Medici. He's staying with a cousin near the del Carmine. Piazza del Carmine. If anyone can tell you what this means. What is it? You've stopped listening. You're staring at the wall behind your mother, where letters are appearing in dripping red as if written by an unseen finger. The literal writing on the wall. Oh dear. The writing stops, leaving a single word. Soon. Fiammetta has her knife in her hand and is rustling through the corners of the room, looking for an intruder. Piero spreads out his hands and the shutters and door bang, locked via animation, so no one can get out. You look into every shadow and start trying to divine the intruder. Stella puts up a hand. There's no need to start a manhunt, it's just a message. There's no one here but us. Despite her reassurance, her voice sounds shaky and her eyes have a haunted look you've never seen there before. A message from whom? Mother, what is this about? She shakes her head. Nothing for you to worry about. You have enough to occupy you. Go on now. Surely the workshop will be missing you all, and if you bring the note to Abravanel, give him my best. What goes on? I'm fresh back from the alchemists, and I have some potions here. Will you have a restorative tonic? Good for the health and makes you strong. Or perhaps you'd like a potion of inspiration to increase the sureness of your hand and the creativity in your eye. Then there's the potion of swagger to give you confidence and the ability to deceive. So, swagger, restorative, or inspiration. Which shall we take, chat? What blessing from our mother do we wish for? Winter Fairy is all in on 3, inspiration. What's the rest of chat think? Restorative tonic. True. I believe that the restorative tonic will go straight to our health, which is already at 61. Oh, you also want 3. Okay. Yeah, swagger, restorative, inspiration. Yes. Okay, it looks like chat is all in on inspiration. I think that's for the best. Yeah, let's do that. Stella pulls a tiny glass vial and passes it to you. It tastes golden, somehow, and sweet on the tongue, but the aftertaste is bitter. You walk out, blinking in the sunshine. Something crashes to the ground beside you, and you spring back. It's a shattered terracotta roof tile right on the stone threshold to your mother's house. Piero brushes some of the golden dust off his hose gingerly. Were you hurt, you ask? He shakes his head. Fiammetta, did it cut you? No, it just startled me. Hell of a place for a roof tile to fall. You look up at the roof. If your mother's house is in disrepair, it could be unsafe. But no, it looks fine. All the reddish gold tiles are lying flat, and they even look fairly new. There's a rapid knocking sound, like a giant clicking his tongue, and a dozen tiles fly up off the edge of the roof and hang in midair. They turn so that the short side of the curved rectangles face you. They angle downward as if some invisible force is preparing to pitch them at you. Run! You yell, taking off yourself. Oh dear. Your mother should be safest inside. This is no mere disrepair. It's magic, and it's malicious. It soon becomes obvious that you can't outrun the tiles. They're ahead of you already. You stop, panting at a small stone well. Narrow alleys radiate out from this little nameless piazza, and in the alleyways, people creep forward, watching. Some look concerned, and some look amused. The tiles form a circle around you, joining end to end. You break the circle with a blow of your arm, but the tiles themselves don't break. They turn parallel to the ground, turning their edges toward you. One flies at your throat, and you manage to catch it there. It quivers in your hand, the gritty edge just brushing your neck, your fingers gripping hard. Fiammetta throws herself at the tiles, yelling like a demon. You can't tell whether she's planning on using magic or the flat of her hand or both. Then you see that she's actually running straight through the formation and on down the street. She's drawing them off. 4 tiles follow her, but the others shudder and stay where they are, and the one at your throat doesn't budge. Piero is doing something with a bucket from the nearby well. What on earth? Then it dawns on you. Alchemy. He's trying to turn the water into some substance that will capture the tiles. Another tile turns flat in the air, and you think for a moment that it's aiming at you, too, until you realize that the remaining tiles are stacking under it. They're about to mount some new attack. You'll have to think of some way out of this, or you'll get hurt. If I can put an animation spell on the tiles, I might be able to shatter them. If I can lead the tiles to Piero's bucket and dodge out of the way quickly, they'll fall in. Brute force is the only way to deal with this. I'll smash them one by one. We are very agile. We are not strong. Animation is our second highest, but it's still in a neutral state. I don't believe animation is necessarily our best choice, but it is certainly not a terrible choice. Brute force for us is a terrible choice. That is a fail state. But we are quite dexterous. So 2 is probably our highest chance of success. So animation, dodge, or force 1, 2, or 3. Trav has already started off the vote with 2. Feel free to weigh in, chat. This is a group-based decision, after all. I have 1 vote for 2. Anybody else? We are, Jews have it. We shall try to be dodgy. The tile in your hand is, at least, a contained problem for the moment. The others, though, are now flying straight at you. You dodge, deliberately in the direction of Piero's bucket. The tile in your hand doesn't want to move with you, but you trick it by diving rather than crouching. So it is always near your neck, but your neck is now somewhere else. Then you pop to your feet and dance to the side, just as the tiles fly to where you were a moment ago. 1 more maneuver, and you'll be free. Fiammetta comes running behind you as you run towards Piero and his bucket. All the tiles follow you. You nearly barrel into Piero, stepping aside at the last moment so the tiles smack into his bucket and into the sticky, gray substance he created in the bottom. They struggle there like fish in a net. The people in the alleys applaud. Fiammetta comes running up out of breath. Piero is pacing, leaving wet footprints on the street. Luca! Stella yells from the door of her house. Have they hurt you? I'm fine, you say, and Piero and Fiammetta are unhurt too. I'll kill them, Stella mutters. This is not fair. You aren't even a customer, although I suppose the tiles couldn't know that. Who? Who is doing this to you? Hurting your customers? Closer, a finger to her lips. Shh. This is not your concern, Luca. You're my mother. Indeed. And as your mother, I ask you to let this rest. You can't help, and you can make it worse. If I have to worry about you on top of everything. She stops. Please, go see a Bravenel. Do the work you have to do. I'll be fine. They won't attack me. They want me alive. You look at Piero and Meta, who look as disinclined to let this go as you are. Dragon, I'm glad you can come. I'm glad you're with us. I hope listening to me read helps. Feel free to drop in, and if you want to join in the chat, you can. But if you just want to lurk, I'm more than happy to have you lurk. I love my lurkers just as much as I love my participators. So I hope that you feel better. I hope that your day today looks up after this. So yeah, do welcome, and I'm glad to have you here. But now we have a decision to make. So, are we more than determined than ever to stand my ground? Anyone who'd hurt me or my family? Aw, Dragon, you're sweet. Are we sick of being cautious, or is it too dangerous to stick out in Florence these days? We need to charm the powerful. Trav votes 3. Strong friends solve a lot of problems, and he's not wrong. We could go to Giovanni di Medici, and ask him to help us protect our mother. That could be the favor we call in. I don't know if it's actually possible within the way this story is written, but like we have a powerful friend that we who owes us a favor. So I'm just saying. It looks like Winter Fairy also agrees. Oh, you guys are so nice. It's just my voice. I was born this way. I don't know what to tell you, but you guys are so sweet. So the 3s have it. It's just too dangerous to stick out in Florence these days. We need to charm the powerful. You can gain allies in the city if you flatter and impress. You can protect your mother from harm, even in Florence, in this year of uncertainty. But the workshop needs you today, and your first task is to get this note deciphered before you have to meet Andrea at the fresco. And you know your mother well enough to know that no one, not even another soothsayer, can pry a secret from her if she's determined to keep it. I'm expected soon on the other side of the river, you say to Stella. Will you be all right here alone? Pfft. Nobody dares to really do anything to harm me. They're cowards. Who, mother? Who's after you? That's my business. Go take care of yours. If you want to see Dr. Abravanel and still make it back across the Arno before Terce, you'll have to hurry. All right, soothsayer. Send me a message if you need me, and I'll be here. Our mother's a stubborn one. You and your companions leave Stella's house, silent and thoughtful. The Piazza del Carmine is, like your mother's house, outside the city walls. It's on the way back to the workshop, so you ask a shopkeeper for the right house and knock on the door. It's opened by a person carved out of wood. It's faced an entirely featureless, gleaming orb of you. It startles you, takes the words out of your mouth. Yes, snaps the automaton, or the creaking voice seems to come from its general location, despite the absence of a mouth or anything like a face. Your master never used animation to make himself servants. He said it was a waste of the animator's energies, and sometimes, on late nights, he'd tell dark stories about sorcerers who fell to the mercy of their creations. But Abravanel, or the homeowner, seems to have no such qualms. When you admit you have no appointment, the impassive servant starts to close the door. If this takes too long, wait to meet Andrea, and they don't like to be kept waiting. Aw. You guys are the sweetest. So, we have 3 choices. We'll use our strength to keep the door open long enough to trick the automaton into letting us in, which we do not have the strength for. We can out-stubborn the automaton by staying on the threshold and being charming enough to make our case from here, or we can be bold and confident enough to just barge past. We went all in on the charming, so I don't know what our stubborn is like. Let's check. I don't have these memorized yet. We're actually more adaptable than stubborn, but our charm will certainly make up for that. We went all in on charming. All in. We do have enough boldness, though. if we want to go that way. So 2 or 3, and it looks like the 2s currently have it. So bold and confident. We actually do have the ability to do this, but we are more charming than anything else. So here we go. You guys are getting me blushing over here. This is ridiculous. Just a person with a voice, I promise. The automaton slams the door, leaving you, Piero, and Fiammetta standing on the threshold. I've heard a great scholar lives here, you say at the top of your voice. How disappointing for me that I could not give him my best wishes and convey those of Stella de... There's no response. You wait for a long time. A stray dog wanders past, sniffs your ankles, looks at you with something like pity, and moves on. Piero rumples his hair, and Fiammetta paces. This isn't working, you mutter impatiently. You wander through the alley to the back of the house, looking for another way in, although you expect to find. It's just a relief not to be standing on the threshold like an automaton yourself. Fiammetta comes running after you. The door's opening, she says. You trot back to the front of the house and see the door closing again. Wait! My mother is a friend of the doctor's, Stella di Firenze. Someone inside the house calls out. What's that? Is that Stella's child? Come in, come in! The animation steps back slowly and lets the door fall open. Judah Leon Abravanel is perhaps 50 years old, or close to it, but he's a strong and vigorous man with a ruddy, pleasant face. He has a very scholarly beard and an even more scholarly hat, and he's wearing dark robes. Forgive the demeanor of my servant, he says. My former partner gave her to me, thinking she would be useful on Shabbat, but of course that is quite forbidden. He didn't know, and the spirit of the gift was kind. I keep her to honor his memory. She does keep me from being interrupted on the other days of the week. The room is simple, but the furniture is beautifully carved. A stone fireplace in one corner, a few chairs, a table, with a bit of bread and cheese laid on it. You've interrupted his breakfast. There is ink on his fingertips, and there is nothing about him at all to suggest any magical inclinations. Soothayer, like your mother, he says, looks, like Stella. He doesn't frame his observations as questions. But you've sought me out nonetheless. Soothsaying is one of the things we do at the workshop. You agree, but the workshop by the Piazza di Santa Maria Novella? Abravanel interrupts. You nod and he leans back. Ah, that is interesting. I was sorry to hear of your master's death. My mother thought you might be able to tell us what this note says. There are symbols, but I don't know their significance. Abravanel takes the note and brings it close to the open window, looks at it in the light. This message was hidden before you revealed it, he said, and did it well by the look of it. I suppose it was easier with 3 of you. He smiles slightly. You've gained favor in his eyes, it seems. You can feel Fiammetta vibrating with impatience beside you. What does it say, Dr. Abravanel? It will take me a little time to work it out. In the meantime, feel free to look through my books. I left most of my library in Venice, of course, but there are some interesting on magic that might be useful to you. He bends over the note, and you take the opportunity to examine his books. There's a stack of about a dozen. You won't have time to study them all, so you choose one volume. Here is where we can up our skills in something. Alchemy, animation, or soothsaying. Soothsaying is our lowest skill. Animation is still neutral. Alchemy is what we're already good at. We could up our alchemy, go all in. We could up our animation so that we have a bit more chance with 2, or we could try to even out our soothsaying, even though it probably won't help us that much. Our alchemy is at 67%. It's not 75 plus. Animation is still neutrally at 50%, so we are not, that's a 50-50 chance of a fail state, essentially. And as we go further on in this story, anything that stays at 50% will probably become just as useless as anything that is below 50%, and soothsaying is already below 50%. So, it has come to our attention that roughly around the 75 mark is where we need our best skills to be at for the end game. But we are, like, all of these stories expect you to specialize in some way. to become a specialist. So that is kind of how this works. We have a vote for 1 and we have a vote for 2. Actually, it looks like we have 2 votes for 1 and a vote for 2. So it looks like the ones have it this round. We are going all in on alchemy. You flip open a plain volume to a title page that bears an enormous woodcut, a snake wrapped around a staff, the rod of Asyphilis. Yeah, I do not know the Latin. I do know what the rod is, but I don't know the Latin. Words crowd the title area above and the snake down the sides. The print is difficult to read and the Latin is ambiguous, but you can read the title. The first word is best translated as tincture, phlogiston, or alkest. What kind of alchemy are we dealing with here? Looks like we're building a type of alchemy. So 1, 2, or 3. Tincture, phlogiston, alkest. What type of alchemy are we learning today? Tell me, chat. Tell me true. It says tincture. Dragon wants phlogiston. We have 1 or 2. Trav, will you break it? 3 is acids. Yes. Trav also decides tincture. Okay, we're going for a tincture. Tincture of Wisdom, a treatise on alchemy with certain disputations on lamentable, hilarious, or grievous. Tincture of Wisdom. Do we want the Tincture of Wisdom to be a certain disputations of lamentable, hilarious, or grievous nature? 1, 2, or 3. Lamentable, hilarious, or grievous? Trav says 3, grievous. What do the others think? Winterfairy agrees. The 3s currently have it. Anyone else want to weigh in? Looks like the 3s have it. The Tincture of Wisdom, a treatise on alchemy with certain disputations on the grievous consequences of error, to which are added the 5 perilous, unknowable, or intoxicating somethings. Perilous, unknowable, or intoxicating. 1, 2, or 3. Trav says 2, unknowable. They're unknowable. How is it that we know them? That is the question. Anybody else want to weigh in? Please, please. I love to hear from my chat. I love my lurkers too, but I love to hear from my chat. True, Chav. True. Better read it to find out. All right. Everyone's going in on unknowable. Unknowable it is. Added the 5 unknowable discoveries of Arsena. You've read several pages and learned a great deal in a few minutes' time. Piero and Fiammetta are reading intently too. You hardly notice when Abravanel steps away from the window. He has a look on his face like a cat that's... Were you successful, sir? Fiammetta asks, nearly bouncing with impatience. I was indeed. The note says you will find the book in the fountain. What book? Asks Piero. Never mind that for now, Piero. Whatever it is, we can't find it if we don't know where to look. Which fountain? Isn't it obvious? Piero says. Fountain in that little the workshop. You know, the one with the frogs. Master used to go there to think, often. Well, if you think this is about the master, Fiammetta starts. It must be about the master. Piero retorts. It came to us after he died. That can't be a coincidence. Then the book must be the master's personal notebook, says Fiammetta, only a little resentfully. It isn't in the workshop. It seems you have some work ahead of you, says Abravanel. Thank you for your help, you reply. If there is ever anything I or the workshop can do for you. Now, I won't hear of that. Come and talk to me about books now and then, and I'll be a happy man. What are you looking at, Luca? You seemed interested in it. Tincture of Wisdom, a treatise on alchemy with certain dispensations on the grievous consequences of error, to which are added the 5 unknowable discoveries of Avricena. Ah, a classic, he says. Although my own a little. Yes, you must come back and we will discuss it, and that will be thanks enough. And of course, when you complete my commission on time, I'll pay the same reward I promised your master, 3 florins, if delivered by Michaelmas. That was the arrangement. Oh my god, that's another one. The master seemed to have used Michaelmas as a deadline. He didn't insistence about. He even used who doesn't observe Christian holy days. Perhaps because the feast at the end of September is the harvest festival when the fruits of summer are ripe, an auspicious moment for projects to ripen too. That's 4. That is literally 4. There are 3 of us. And we have a fresco. Oh my goodness. That's 5 projects, guys. 5. You and Piero and Fiammetta look at each other, wide-eyed and speechless. Another idea that Abravanel had given Master a commission. Your commission, you say. Of course. We have so many. Remind me which was yours? He looks at you with a strange smile, and you remember that it's not easy to fool a Soothayer, but he seems amused, not angry. He turns to the window as if his thoughts are far away. I was born in Lisbon and grew up there. My father supported the wrong heir, and we left for Spain. I became the personal physician to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, and it is then I began to be interested in the secrets of the mind and heart. No doctor can truly heal without understanding these. Don't you agree? How do we respond? Compassion does seem to be the root of all healing. The secrets of the mind are inseparable from those of the body. It is all one, I have no doubt of that. Or, the spark of the divine in every person is the answer to all mysteries, I'm sure. The first one is easy, it's compassion. The second one is, I believe, reason. And the third one is faith. One, two, or three. Compassion, reason, or faith. 3. We've given up. Only God can help us now. Oh, Trav, I feel like that sentiment is very apt in this moment. We have 5 commissions to finish. 5. Oh my God. Reese. Out of all of them. The spark of the divine in every person is the answer to all mysteries, I'm sure. How right you are. For 8 years, I served the king and queen to the best of my abilities, body and soul. I considered them my friends as much as any monarch can be a friend to anyone. They were not my friends. They passed a decree exiling any Jew who could not convert to Christianity. When I refused, they set a watch to keep me in Spain. I sent my son to Portugal in the dead of night, thinking he'd be safe there. But the king of Portugal kidnapped my little son and baptized him without my consent. His voice wavers. I tried to convince the king and queen to show them their error, but I could not. They were lost to me, lost to reason. I could see their thoughts, but I could not change their hearts. Neither Spain nor Portugal were safe. I was in exile once more. That was, 20 years ago now. So you came to Italy, Piero says. He nods. I did, first to Naples, but I left when the French invaded. Like many others, including the Monticello, you shiver, thinking of the man in the shadows. Now I live in Venice, Abravanel continues, and I have devoted the last 20 years to learning the arts of rhetoric and poetry, so that I can change hearts and dispel error. I am here in Florence, nominally, to pay my respects to the Medici family on the restoration to power, but in truth, my main objective in being here is to collect something your master promised to make me. A pen that can only write truth, and an ink that can only write beauty. Do you know how far along he was on it when he died? You look at Piero and Fiammetta, but their faces tell you that this is news to them. You shake your head. I will look into it right away. Thank you, doctor. You know, Trav, that theory is getting to be more and more apt because this is four secret commissions and one fresco. And I imagine that there might be another couple of things that people have been working on as well, that we have to finish in like a week. What? I can't believe the master would have taken on a commission without telling me, says Piero, shaking his head. It's time for you to understand that Master was not who you thought he was, Piero, Fiammetta snaps. This note has something to do with him, Luca thinks, and I agree. And there's this commission he kept to himself. If we're going to get out of all of this with the workshop intact, we have to keep our heads and grow up. Grow up? Piero retorts in shock. I'm older than you are, says Fiammetta. The three of you walk back across the Arno towards central Florence. The bells ring out for terce as you pass near the Piazza di Gran Duca. You'll be a little late. You agree that you will be the one to check the frog fountain later, before the workshop has its daily planning meeting. But for now, Andrea is waiting for you at the fresco with 2 apprentices and several buckets and brushes. With each passing hour, it seems, you learn more about the master's deception. It's hard not to feel. How do we feel, chat? How do we feel? Are we bitter and more sure than ever that no one can have faith in anyone or anything, which would probably lose us some faith? Are we anxious and uncertain that any authority can be needed? Or are we less sure of the right course and wishing for divine guidance? So Winter Fairy is like, let's take a hit to faith. We have been faithful up until this point, so it's not entirely in character, but it's not out of character because, my God, this man has screwed us. Trav wants a choice that I don't have available, that if he wasn't dead, we'd have done it ourselves. No, I don't think that we are quite so bloody righteous in nature. Looks like chat is all about take to faith. Okay. We are bitter and more sure than ever that no one can have faith in anyone or anything. If you couldn't trust the master, who can you trust? There's beauty in the works of human hands, but you're starting to doubt that said beauty comes from any divine spark or inherent nobility in human nature. Anyway, the master's deception has left you with a practical problem. No worries, dragon. We would love to have you back as soon as you can come. The whole workshop will have to decide soon which of the commissions to take on. You can't possibly complete them all by Michaelmas. They already know about the commission for Judah Leon Abravino. Should you tell Piero and Fiammetta about the commissions you've learned from Henrique of Congo, Alfonsina Orsini, and Dangereux Clement? If you keep it to yourself, you will have more control over the commissions the workshop takes on, and you can be sure to argue for the ones that match your own skill set. If you discuss the decision in advance with one or either of them, that will ensure they work closely with you. If you tell only one of them, they'd each be pleased that you chose them or the other, but a fully unified approach may increase workshop morale. So we have the choice of keeping it all to ourselves, of which, good luck to us, of telling Fiammetta, of telling Piero, or of telling them both. Winter Fairy wants 4, tell them both. Trav agrees. Everything. They still exist. Not telling them is just buying trouble. Yeah, I agree. We have so many secret projects. It's crazy. We will tell them all. We need help. This is, oh gods, we're going to die. Before you reach Andrea, you say, wait a moment, you two. I have something to tell you. Something I want you to think about before the planning meeting. Abravanel's commission isn't the only one the master was keeping from us. I've learned about the other 3. I've learned about 3 others. Fiammetta is, for once, speechless. She shakes her head tight-lipped and looks up towards the heavens as though cursing the master's ascending soul. 3 others! 3 others! Unbelievable, Piero whispers. Alfonsina Orsini wants a Henrique of Congo wants a flying machine, and Dangereux Clement wants a vault. They all promise to pay 3 florins, and they'll all want it by Michaelmas. We'll have to tell the apprentices what to work on. They both look stunned. All right, Piero says at last. Let's all think about which commissions to make our priorities. We can't do them all in time. Fiammetta, for once, agrees with Piero. We'll discuss it before the workshop's planning meeting. God, what a mess. They nod their farewells to Andrea and walk pensively back towards the workshop. Are you ready, Andrea? I was ready well before you got here. You were a little late, you know. I'm sorry, Andrea. It's been an eventful morning. That's all right, Luca. I don't mind too much. Let's get started, shall we? Where do you want me? The Piazza di Santa Croce is dominated on one side by the Balistica, with its high peaked facade. The piazza itself is a vast open rectangle, and every year in the early spring, the middle of it is filled with sand to create a rectangular playing field for the game of Calcio Florentino. There are 27 players on each side, and they struggle for control of a ball. That struggle often takes the form of wrestling, kicking, punching, and, on one memorable occasion, a magical duel. Do you like to play the game yourself? Yes, it keeps us healthy, although I struggle with confidence in competitive matches. Yes, it keeps me healthy, though I'm clumsy on the field. No, I don't have time to exercise. I spend my time honing my mind. Or no, who needs exercise? I was born strong as an ox. Trav votes for mind honing, but we have confidence, clumsy, mind, or ox, which all know that strength is not our strong suit. So I don't recommend 4. 3 seems to be the way we're going. Hi, Fox. Welcome in. Welcome in. You've missed some story, but we're glad to have you. We're talking about a game, so I will let you weigh in on this, although the 3s currently have it. Do we think this game keeps us healthy, and although we struggle with confidence? Do we think it keeps us healthy, although we're clumsy? Do we think that we don't have time to exercise, we like to hone our mind, or that we don't have time to exercise because we were born strong? Confidence. We're a winner. The first one is actually not that we have confidence, but that we struggle with it. We are not confident. So far, the 3s have it. So we're going to go with 3. We'd spend time honing our mind. Back before the Papal army restored the Medici to de facto rule in the city, the Republic of Florence had asked the workshop to create an open-air fresco in the piazza to celebrate the game. When the Medici returned, they confirmed the commission. Unlike many frescoes in the Basilia and its chapels, this will not be a religious scene, and the fact that it is open to the elements makes it an extra challenge. Although it's somewhat protected, the wall of the fresco is well inside a covered portico along one side of the piazza. The idea is that visiting dignitaries will gather in the portico to drink wine and watch the game. Those dignitaries who don't take the field themselves, that is. It had to be an active, exciting scene, one that will impress the confraternity with your skill, and one that will endear you to the common people who have to walk past it every day. And there's one more challenge. It has to be able to move. Indeed, Fox, you came in with no context. There are 2 methods for making a moving fresco. First, you can mix a plaster that never quite sets all the way, that stays pliable enough that it is almost alive. This requires great skill with alchemy and is only possible with the addition of certain ingredients, which you'd have to take from the workshop's supplies. Hourglass sand is a precious commodity in the workshop. It's fine, pale sand that has spent at least a century in a well-used hourglass. Every time someone turns the hourglass, a little of the person's life goes into the sand. Only a little, not enough that anyone would notice, but it builds over time. Hourglass sand is notoriously unpredictable in its potency. Much depends on how anxious the glass's owner was, and tricky to use. It is also very difficult to procure. Your workshop is running low on supplies, and if you use the hourglass sand, will become dangerously low. There is another way. You can simply animate each figure. Grain of plaster by grain of plaster. It's a tricky kind of animation that responds to the spirit of the art and moves with it. It requires great artistry to create an image with enough animating spirit. On the cart are bags of ordinary sand and a bucket full of the whitest powder imaginable, a slacked lime, which can act as the binding agent, just as it does in mortar. It always strikes you as a kind of magic. Once this stuff with limestone that was heated to make quicklime. When the quicklime is dunked in water, it gives off heat like an oven and creates slacked lime. Now it can build cathedrals or hold pigment and burn skin. As you ready your equipment, the apprentice who brought everything approaches you. It's Maria, a young woman with bright eyes. Will you be needing anything more from me today? If you ask Maria to stay and help, your work here will be easier, but that will eat into the workshop's time and therefore its morale. So, we can use the alchemical method, which requires supplies, and ask the Maria to help. We can use the alchemical method and tell Maria we don't need help. We can use either animation or artistry and ask Maria to help, or we can use animation and artistry because both are strong and we don't need the apprentice's help. Um, let's check. Our animation is at 50%, but our artistry is pretty high. That's be, but it is one of the two highest stats we have. In fact, reasoned has gone up as well. Quite a bit, I might add. So animation and artistry is possibly a minor success, but not a full success. Alchemy is our highest magic, period. We are morale for the workshop has taken a hit, but is neutral up here. So I'm not sure which one of those will. I actually think it's the workshop morale up top that will take the hit if the apprentice stays. So alchemy and apprentice, alchemy, no apprentice, animation or artistry and apprentice, animation and artistry, no apprentice. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Indeed, Trav. We will end up with dangerously low workshop supplies, but we do have some amount of money that we might be able to buy supplies. Really hard to say. We did save money earlier trying to undo the note. So currently the vote is 2, alchemy, no apprentice. Anybody else want to weigh in on the matter? Well, the 2s have it then. Alchemy with no apprentice. You bid Maria farewell and she hurries back to the workshop. You ladle some white lime into some ordinary sand. Then you open the little jar on the cart and pour a tiny bit of white hourglass sand into the mix. It's so fine that it slips out like a skein of silk, and you have to pour it low so the wind doesn't take it. You mix the plaster carefully with a long stick, muttering to yourself and trying to ignore Andrea's amusement at seeing you behave like such a sorcerer bent over a cauldron. Well, a bucket, but the effect is the same. Plaster for frescoes is especially difficult, even when it doesn't have to come to life. It takes all the secret incantations you know and a lot of effort of will, but at last you see the white plaster heave a sigh, like a ball of dough after it's been poked. The breath of life. Now, you say excitedly. You'll do the fresco in sections because the pigment has to be applied to fresh plaster. If all goes well, today you'll complete 2 sections. The first section will include a player reaching up in vain to try and catch the ball. You envision the player and pale, like a graceful pillar on one side of the painting. Andrea is the perfect model. Non-magical painters have to wait about a day for the plaster to cure enough that the brushes won't mar it, but that part of the alchemy is quite simple. You wave your hand, say a few words, and the plaster reaches the perfect consistency. You pull out the preliminary made a few days ago and a second piece of paper coated in charcoal. The charcoal paper goes between the drawing and the plaster, and you use a stylus to transfer a faint outline of your drawing onto the plaster. You'll have a few hours now before it gets too hard to paint. Now for the test. You dip your brush into the brown, into the yellow, into the white, and paint a tiny moth in one corner. The moth flutters. It worked. You exhale, and besides you, Andrea claps. It doesn't matter how many times I see that, they say. It amazes me every time. You set up an easel to hold a sketch you did of Andrea a week ago. It will help you map the proportions and the overall movement of the section, but it's still good to have the model here with you for the subtler elements of light and shadow and expression. Watch out for the dragon's blood, Andrea says, referring to one of your pigments. Notice that back uneven. You smile at their position in front of you. You'll be an artist soon yourself if you're not careful, Andrea. I'm an artist already, they say with a smile. I have to paint myself in my mind's eye to imagine how I ought to sculpt my body. Like an actor, I have to wear a certain expression. Like a dancer, I have to be able to contort my body into beauty and hide the pain. And like any artist, my work will survive. 500 years hence, people will stare at a painting of me and wonder about my enigmatic smile. You sound very confident. Are you a soothsayer? Andrea would shrug if they weren't in position. I have a little natural talent for seeing the future, and I have a good sense of people's thoughts. Of course, most of that simply comes from being part of the background, of listening while perfectly still. Andrea's knowledge of the workshop is useful because we don't get much time as we'd like to talk to our fellow workers. The more we know about the apprentices, the better we can control them, or we don't want to take any action without first gathering as much information as we can. 1, 2, or 3. Talk, control, gather. I'll take numbers or keywords, but you guys tell me. 1, 3. Please, please, please. Winter Fairy says 3. We like to gather information. Does the rest of chat agree? Trav weighs in. We need to know stuff. Maybe Andrea knows something about commissions? Maybe. It looks like the 3s have it. And what do you hear in the workshop these days? People are sad about Master's death and worried about the future, as you'd expect. They all have a great deal of respect for you, as they do for Piero and Fiammetta. Nobody likes the uncertainty about which of you will lead the workshop, and I've noticed some of the apprentices have slowed down in their work, just a little, as if waiting for something. Direction, perhaps, or confirmation that the clients still want their commissions. They certainly do, you think. After you paint this panel, you'll go to the planning meeting and see what you can do to assuage the apprentices' fears. Are you beginning now? Andrea asks. If so, I'll shut up. I'm beginning, but you can keep talking. I'll start with... Please do, Andrea says with a wink. Andrea hasn't ever flirted with you before, that you've noticed. Perhaps they're just letting you know that they're not still upset about you being late. It's probably just camaraderie bit of fun, but it does make you consider your feelings about Andrea. So, are we attracted to Andrea and find them as charming as we aspire to be? Are we attracted to Andrea and finding them as unusual as we aspire to be? So that's charm versus eccentricity. Although we find them charming as we aspire to be, we're not attracted, or although we find them as unusual as we aspire to be, we're not attracted. So attracted charming, attracted eccentric, not attracted charming, not attracted eccentric. We've gone all in on charm, by the way. So the eccentric will just give us a hit to charm, and I don't think that we want that. Trav says 3. Weren't we considering Conrad? We actually have considered both Conrad and Dangereux Clement, actually. We can still consider Andrea, the androgynous they-them model. We've already declined considering Fiammetta and Piero. Apparently, we're all about Conrad. Okay, then. Chat has decided on Conrad, the bestie. Interesting. All right. Although we find them charming as we aspire to be, we are not attracted to Andrea. They're too they-them for us, even though we are they-them as well. You smile politely and can see that Andrea, who picks up on unspoken language, understands that you have no interest. You draw the line of Andrea's thigh. Somehow you've got to convey a feeling of motion and energy in the figure's legs. So, do we make each stroke with confidence Do we use the dexterity of our hand, or the trick is in the mind, not the hand? The proportions of art are mathematical. So I think that's reason. Confidence, dexterity, or reason. 1, 2, or 3. I take keywords as well as numbers. Trav says 2. Our dexterity is pretty high. Winterfairy says 3. Our reason is actually just as high. We managed to pull that off somehow. Our confidence is the one that is low. So dexterity and reason, or perhaps artistry, somewhere in here. Which do we want higher, I guess, or which do we think will succeed? So right now we have 2 and 3. Anyone else want to weigh in so that I don't have to? I love it when my chat makes decisions for me. That's the fun of this. Guess you're leaving it up to me, chat. Okay, I see you. I actually think we're going to go with dexterity this time, primarily because I like dexterity. I think reason is great, being so high. Being smart is good, but I'm gonna go with dexterity. I'm gonna keep it dexterous. Ooh, we got a good start on the fresco. We've earned another achievement, chat. Good job. Every movement precise. You guide the pigment on. It's in stripes of brown and yellow, layering it on to represent the color of Andrea's hose. A little darker here, a little lighter there. Although you're in control of every movement, you're also quick enough that you have time to fill in another section of damp plaster. Perform the alchemy to cure it just enough, then paint the outstretched arm of the next player, an arm that also belongs to Andrea. The planning meeting will start soon at the workshop, says Andrea. You nod and put down your brush. Only then does Andrea unkink their neck, breathe deep, and stretch every limb. Thank you for your work this morning. I'll meet you there, you say, hastily tidying the equipment cart. I have something to do first. And that is the end of chapter 3. Whew! We made it, chat. We did it. So our health has taken a hit just from the amount of things we've had to do. I believe that's from the fight with the tiles. Alchemy is 70%. Animation and soothsaying have never gotten any higher. We are reasoning, artistry, and dexterity as our highest, guile as our second highest, and confidence and strength not good. We are slightly adaptable, very charming, somewhat bold and good-willed, faithful and orderly. Not much has changed here in our relationships, save that Andrea has a lower relationship than they did before. Our mother is more neutral with us again. We've recovered our relationship with our mother because we love her so. Everything else seems to be the same, except for the fact that we now have a relationship with a Bravanel, who we didn't have before. This list has grown longer, and we actually do have a relationship with the Monticello. Ooh, but it's neutral. As for reputation, the respect of the people, it has gone up higher. Our fresco is helping with that because the people who are watching it as it's being made are enjoying fresco. So for that, the respect of the workshop still has taken a hit, but what can you do? So yeah, that's where we are. We also got an achievement, get a good start on the fresco. So that has definitely helped us. We shall see how much in the future. On to chapter 4, the workshop. The noon bells will be calling the apprentices in from their work for the weekly meeting at the workshop. This one is more important than any before, though, so you expect most of them will get there early. As one of the 3 potential new masters, this is your chance to improve your reputation in the workshop and make sure the morale isn't slipping. First, though, you want to visit the courtyard by the workshop, see if you can find what's hidden there. Back to the workshop, you hear strange laughter in a nearby alley. Something's not right about it. Uncertainly, you follow the sound until you find yourself in a dark alley. too dark. Uh-oh. You spin around to find the opening to the street is gone by stone walls on sides. No windows, no doors, not even ivy to help you climb. You call out and bang your fist on the wall where the street used to be, but your voice reverberates. Then another voice behind you. The voice of the Montesiello, in the darkest corner of the alley. In the morning light, he takes the form of a mere shadow in the shape of a man wearing a hat. It's just your mind playing tricks. The shadow seems to say in a deep whisper. The light changes and the way is open again. Your heart stops hammering. It's you playing tricks on my mind, you mean? Why? Why me? But the shadow fades like water drying on a wall in the sun. Interesting. As you stand there pondering what to do next, Judah Abravanel comes running up to you. For a middle-aged scholar, he runs quickly. I was passing by and I heard shouting, he says. Is everything all right now? You nod and swallow in a dry mouth. It's fine, thank you, sir. He shakes his head. I saw something else, a shape on the wall. There are creatures in Venice, shadowy figures. I have made a study of them there. I would like to learn more about such beings, to help us understand what they want and stop them from doing us harm. Do you know anything that might help me? The Montesiello would still be listening and won't like you talking about him. But if you tell Abravanel what you know, he'll trust you and respect you more. Perhaps you could direct Abravanel to your mother, which won't anger him or please him, but it won't anger the Montesiello either. So, how do we deal with this creature of shadow who seems to be helping us? Not seems to like us, but pissing it off would probably be a bad idea. So, do we tell Abravanel about the Montesiello? Do we keep it to ourselves? Or do we tell Abravanel to ask our mother? For it was on her recommendation that we got in to see him in the first place. Of course, our mother is in a pickle. How much pull does Abravanel have to keep himself and her safe? Winter Fairy says 3. Trav says 1. So this is more relationship with Abravanel, but also a hit to the Montesiello. Number 2 is more relationship with the Montesiello with a hit to Abravanel. Possible a hit to Abravanel. And number maybe nothing happens. Maybe no change. Maybe both go up. Not sure. We do know that our mother is in a pickle. Abravanel to our could possibly be problematic for both of them. For neither of them. They're both soothsayers. Maybe they can figure it out. Chat has left it up to me, though. Why, chat? Why? The guilt tripping now begins. Why? Why do you make me make decisions? It's so hard. I'm going to go the safe route and just have him go to our mother and ask. It's so much safer. About such things, but my mother might, you suggest. That's true, he says thoughtfully. I owe her a visit in any case. I'll be getting back to my work, you say. Thank you for your concern. If you're sure you're all right, of course. Of course. And I look forward to visiting the workshop myself soon and seeing you in action. Perhaps then I can collect the pen and ink. The Courtyard of the Frogs. After you and Abravanel part ways, you take a few minutes first to stop by the courtyard that contains the fountain, the one you suspect might have been the subject of the secret note. You will find the object in the fountain. Worst possible place to leave a book, one would think. Leaving the cart of paint supplies near the entrance, you take a few steps inside. The courtyard hardly merits the name. It's more of an alley, really. A cobbled corner behind 2 brick buildings, just around the corner from the workshop. There's a stone bench along one wall, the seat worn in the middle by who knows how many backsides over who knows how many centuries. In the middle is a round stone basin filled with greenish water, and 4 frogs on the stone lip, one for each cardinal direction. Water trickles out of copper pipes inside mouths. It's not much, but it is strangely cool and quiet here in the middle of the hot, busy city. Perhaps some animator put a dampening spell on it years ago. A good place to think. The fountain itself seems straightforward enough. You can see clear to the bottom of the basin. There isn't even a pipe there. This is an animated fountain, and the slight bubbling of the water into the little pipe at the frog's bottom is entirely magical. You bend and look all around the basin, but you don't see any inscriptions or markings. Perhaps it's a riddle. Perhaps the note is referring to some other fountain, or perhaps it's just a bit of nonsense, a prank or a hoax. You have time for one attempt to discover the secret, if a secret there is. If you can find it, that will give you more confidence that you can take the master's place. Best be careful, though. You don't want to do anything that will make you late for the meeting or otherwise damage your reputation in the workshop. Are we a deceptive enough person that I just have to ask where I'd hide something? Do we cast a soothsaying spell to try and reveal anything hidden? Or do we think the problem through and figure it out that way? So we have guile, soothsaying, or reason. We know that we have reason high. Guile is only a touch higher than 50%, so it's possibly a fail state already. I don't think we have enough skill to do it. And soothsaying is low, so I don't recommend number two, but one, two, or three, guile, soothsaying, or reason. Looks like the threes have it today. Okay. We'll just think the problem through and figure it out that way. There aren't many hiding places in the courtyard, certainly not big enough to hide even a small object. You inspect the bricks of the wall and try a gentle animation to see whether any are loose, but they're all firmly mortared in. It doesn't take you long to figure it out. In the fountain implies the interior of the basin or the pipes and workings, but it might mean something a little different. If the fountain has a false bottom, for example, you try another animation, turning the circular fountain as though it were a screw. Lo and behold, the thing turns as easily as though it were greased and lifts up into the air, revealing a raised iron lid underneath. About damn time, croaks a frog. You lift the iron grate up, and there it is, dry and safe, a leather-bound book. You've seen it before, caught glimpses of it in Master's hands under a pile of scrolls, his personal notebook. You found it without too much difficulty. Perhaps you are ready to step into the Master's shoes. Inside the Master's notebook. Once you've replaced the grate and the fountain settles itself back in position, you open the book, holding your breath. You half expect the pages to be empty, but the pages are full of writing, in watery brown ink, in the master's distinctive handwriting. You nearly whoop in victory. It comes as a relief. Perhaps this will help you with the commissions the master so helpfully left as his legacy. Perhaps that's all the Monticello wanted, to help. Perhaps he owed the master a favor. Surely that's a reasonable theory. Notes are not readable. The letters are all jumbled, but this is the kind of cipher with which you're familiar, and given enough time and effort, you can work it out. Piero might even know which ciphers the master used, which would help. You close the book again with a thump. For now, you've got to get to the workshop for the meeting. You slip the notebook inside an unassuming burlap sack and the paint supply. The meeting. The workshop is, as you predicted, full and buzzing, but the buzz has a strangely subdued quality. It isn't the boisterous jawing of comrades, but a hushed speculation. For a moment, you see why. Piero and Fiammetta are in one corner of the workshop, engaged in close conversation with two people, Lucrezia de Medici and your best friend, Conrad. You didn't know Conrad was working for Lucrezia now. Oh, but it doesn't surprise you. Conrad is a particular kind of soothsayer called a civipex, very useful to politicians. He tests the mood of the city through a suspiciously ritualistic and individualized spell that no one else understands, not even other civvy spices. He performs the spell. He can tell their masters or clients certain information, always expressed in ratios. 3/4 of the city prefer having a standing army to relying on mercenaries. 2/5 of the city is wary of Medici rule, that sort of thing. These are shifting, diffuse intelligences, and you're not even sure how much faith Conrad has in it, but he will sneak belligerently in any tavern given half an excuse. You secure the cart with the master's notebook hidden on room that's magically inaccessible to anyone but you, Fiammetta, and Piero, and the master when he was alive. You make your way through the crowd of apprentices. As you approach, Lucrezia, Conrad, Piero, and Fiammetta, they all stop talking and look at you. They all look slightly worried, with the exception of Lucrezia, who looks studiously blank. You know Lucrezia by sight. She was at the Cardinal's party, and she's been a fixture here in Florence for years, even before the Medici men returned from exile. She worked tirelessly to secure the plotting, planning, but she doesn't look triumphant. She's a middle-aged woman with golden hair, a rich red gown, and a shrewd look in her eyes. You bow your head. My lady, I am Luca di Firenze, the third of the master's assistants. Welcome to the workshop. Signora de Medici has come to discuss her commission, Fiammetta says pointedly, her wide eyes telling you she's as alarmed by this as you are. You look at Piero, and he gives you a slight, overwhelmed shrug. I know my request would be a challenge for any workshop, Lucrezia says with a beatific smile. The master had confidence in you, though. I hope the current circumstances will not create delays. Somehow you have to get Lucrezia to tell you what the commission is for. Can you manage this deceit without tipping your hand and giving her a bad impression? You could try flattery, which will test your charm and adaptability. Perhaps if you pretend to be annoyed, that will do the trick. But it will require you to be bold and grumpy. Or you can impress her with how esoteric and unknowable your work is. But tread cautiously. A little eccentricity goes a long way. So, charm, bold, or eccentric. 1, 2, or 3. Reminder, charm is all we have. Trav says charm. Anyone else agree or disagree? Oh, nope. We've got consensus. We will flatter Lucrezia into the next century. It is a challenge, to be sure, but a welcome one from such an important figure in Florence, you say. It is a fascinating puzzle. Is it really? Lucrezia asks. What is so fascinating about it? The first part of the deception seems to have worked, but you have to think quickly now. The specifications, you explain, are not those that would immediately spring to any mind. She nods. I see what you mean. The obvious choice would have been for the purse to generate infinite coins, but I had my reasons. I wondered, Fiammetta says, picking up on your cues, what your thinking was about that. A purse that generates infinite coins would contain the seeds of its own demise, and my own. If anyone could make infinite money, then money would get less and less valuable until we're all drowning in gold like Midas. And long before that happened, someone would kill me to get possession of the purse. An object that's too valuable is not valuable at all. Very wise, murmurs Conrad. You can never tell when Conrad is being ironic. Ah, so therefore, Piero prods, Lucrezia's commission. I want a purse that can deliver a promised bribe, but there must be a limit on it, you see. That's why I chose 400 florins, but only once every full moon, so that my allies know that my gifts are limited and precious. And it will only create the florins if the heart of that ally is loyal to me. You nod. A difficult task, to be sure. I'll pay what I promised the master, Lucrezia says. 3 florins due by Michaelmas, you supply somewhat warily. Yes! She looks pleased. Oh, and the master knew, of course, that I prefer bright colors if possible, nothing too dismal. But I'll take whatever you can give me so long as it does what I ask. She turns to Fiammetta and Piero. Well, with that taken care of, shall we continue that tour? I would greatly love to see that model of the crane that built the cathedral dome. Fiammetta nods and smiles and says, Perhaps you can keep Conrad from becoming bored in our absence, Luca. We'll just be a moment. They leave you with Conrad, who smiles weakly. Oh, geez, that's another one. Conrad looks after the departing figure of Lucrezia distractedly. Working for Lucrezia now, you ask? Conrad says. Ah, yes, I am. You have a quiet moment now to try to cheer your friend up as you get a sense of what's bothering him, but if you misjudge the situation, you could just annoy him. Do we show Conrad that we're confident the rest of the visit will be fine? Do we use our deductive skills to figure out what's bothering him, or do we charm a smile out of him, knowing that our charm is the highest here? Confident? Yeah. Confidence is probably a fail state, not necessarily a fail state. We're at 50%. Reasoning is 59, but charm is off the chart. We can charm anyone. That is currently our highest stat. So 1, 2, or 3. Confident, deduction, or charm. What shall we do? I agree, Trav. If we could create florins, we would, and paying 3 florins is grossly undervaluing it. Yes. However, it is 400, a limit of 400 florins basically once per month. I'm pretty sure Lucrezia makes 3 times that amount regularly. Like it is an amount of wealth, but it's not. It's a reasonable amount of wealth for the amount that she makes. However, as you notice, all of these very extravagant commissions are only 3 florins apiece. We do not understand the economics of this era to understand what that is amount in our own terms. But yeah, it's a thing. Um, so it looks like we have the majority votes of 3 because charm is uh, charm is what we do. Charm is what we do. We will charm a smile out of him. Cheer up, Conrad. Your new employer is taking a tour through a rickety workshop full of dangerous magical items, surrounded by grieving apprentices who have no idea what they're doing in a city where no one knows who might be in charge of things tomorrow. Day in Florence. A smile twitches Conrad's mouth. Well, when you put it that way, why worry, you rogue? But I'm not worried about her visit to the workshop. What is it, Conrad? What's wrong? Maybe nothing. I don't know. I thought working for Lucrezia would be a wise choice. The more Medici, the better, I thought. Fool that I was. You see, I sometimes work for Alfonsina Orsini, too, and now it seems they both trust me, suspect me of helping the other. But Alfonsina and Lucrezia are sisters-in-law. They're on the same side. It's not as though you were working for the Medici's family's enemies back in the days when they were exiled. Not like Machiavelli was, for example, or your mother. They're both Medici, sure, but they have very different ideas about how to keep the Medici in power. Alfonsina wants a strong man in control. People say Cardinal Giovanni will be pope before long, you see. So Alfonsina wants her son to take power for Giovanni in Rome. And whom does Lucrezia want? Us. Conrad turns his brilliant smile on you. The people of Florence. Lucrezia believes that democracy is the most stable form of government. As the most powerful family in a republic, the Medici can thrive forever. But as de facto or de jure princes, well, there can always be another prince with another army. I think Lucrezia is right, which is why I'm working for her now. But she doesn't trust me. By trying to work with all the Medici, it seems I've hurt my chances for continuous employment with any of the Medici. And if the Medici do hold power, one way or another, well, there won't be many prospects left for me in Florence. Conrad seems to realize he has been talking aloud and turns to you. Never mind all that. Tell me what's happening here. It must be difficult. A lot of uncertainty. Is that your professional acumen as a service pex? Common sense. Here, in the busy warehouse with an important meeting looming, you can't do anything about your epiphany but smile at Conrad in a way that makes him look at you curiously. Lucrezia returns with Piero and Fiammetta, and her servant hands out sweet pastries to the apprentices. This is Florence, says Lucrezia, addressing the whole room. The spirit of Florence is here, in this workshop. The spirit of invention and wonder, of hard work and camaraderie. I commend you all. The apprentices applaud politely. While this is happening, Piero and Fiammetta pull you aside, and Fiammetta asks, Did you make it to the courtyard? Did you find the book? This is the moment when you could let Piero, Fiammetta, or both of them know that you found the master's notebook. So, I'll tell one or both of them. I might want to run the workshop alone, but I do need help now. I'll tell one or both of them, but I don't think I'll choose to run the workshop alone. I'll keep it to myself. If I want to run the workshop alone, I need to be careful with information. Or I'll keep it to myself. I don't think I want to run the workshop alone, but I need time to understand the book. Yes, Trav, it is absolutely that. But it's established that every commission is 3 florins. Like, It was established before we even knew about all these secret commissions. So that's just the price that the confraternity has for our artisan workshops such as this. Run it alone. We've got so many of the old guys over promises to fix that we need everyone. Yeah, I know. But these are the choices. Tell them uh tell them alone, tell them not alone, keep it to myself alone, keep it to myself not alone. 1, 2, 3, or 4. So Trav says 2. Tell them both, one or both. We do not want to run this workshop by ourselves. Winter Fairy also agrees. I agree too. That is the safest bet. Like, there's 3 of us. We've got so many projects. Like, it's getting ridiculous. Every new person we meet is like, oh, yeah, by the way, our secret commission. Like, it's getting ridiculous. Whom will we tell? They both know about the note and the fountain. So, do we tell Piero? Do we tell Fiammetta? Or do we tell them both? Remember, Piero likes us a little more. Fiammetta likes us a little less, but we've been telling them both so far. Are we going to change our minds on that? Telling them both. Thank goodness. You nod. I found it. I'm sure it's his, but it's enciphered. It'll take some time to decode. And time is the thing we're short on, Piero says. Decisions time. Together. Besides, who do we want to alienate? Do we want to alienate anyone? At this point, I don't think we have the ability. Lucrezia finishes her speech to the apprentices and walks over to you, smiling. She bids you farewell and sweeps out of the workshop. An expectant hush falls over the apprentices. They've had their time to mourn and take stock of the new situation. Today is about business. What needs to be done? Which priorities will you set? And perhaps most important, how will you set them? Will you, Piero, and Fiammetta work as rivals or together? In addition to the fresco and some smaller projects taken on, there are the 5 commissions due by Michaelmas. It is impossible to do them all in that time. You'll have to choose 3, and each of them will require the resources of the entire workshop, so you'll all have to be working on the same commissions. None of the apprentices know about the commissions yet. Piero and Fiammetta know about all of them. They'll have opinions on which the workshop should take on. The safest bets are the projects that align with your particular strengths. Although the great thing about working with others is that there will always be ways to compensate for your weaknesses. Of course, you must also consider which clients you're willing to disappoint. And if you're honest, which projects you'll enjoy the most. After all, what is this life for if you can't love what you do? The master took on a somewhat lackadaisical approach to finances. So if you need to pay for anything or borrow money, you'll be putting your own money at risk. But once you get paid, the workshop will pay you back and cover those debts. Every commission pays the workshop 3 florins. That money will go to pay the apprentices and you. For the week's work, you'll earn 3 lira or 60 soldi for yourself. That is, if the workshop makes any money. Which project is your top choice? Alfonsina Orsini wants a weapon that will remove soldiers from a castle wall. That will require an emphasis on animation and reasoning. Henrique of Congo wants a flying machine. That will require artistry in the design, but also animation. Dangerous Clement wants an impermeable vault. That will require soothsaying and dexterity. Judah Leon Abravanel wants a pen and ink to write truth and beauty. That will require an emphasis on alchemy and artistry. Lucrezia de Medici wants to pursue that will generate bribes for loyal allies. That will on soothsaying and alchemy. Our top choice is Abravanel's. We have alchemy and artistry as 2 of our highest. Animation and reasoning would be also reasonable. Artistry and animation also reasonable. Soothsaying and dexterity is a gamble. Soothsaying and alchemy, also a gamble. But again, anything with alchemy in it is probably good for us. So the weapon, the flying machine, the weapon, flying, vault, pen, purse. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Politically speaking, Abravanel is probably the one that we can most afford to skip. Yes. Lucrezia and Orsini are the least ones we can afford to skip. We have to do one or the other or both. Dangereux Clement, not a good idea to piss off the woman in charge of thieves, spies, and assassins, even though we will suck at it. Henrique of Congo, we can probably afford to ignore him as well. Orsini, Medici, and Clement. Yeah, I think those are the three choices we need to do. But this is which project is our top choice. I have a feeling that we do the top choice, the secondary choice, and the third choice. I think this is what the story is going for. So, which one is our top choice out of the three that we have? Animation and reasoning. Our animation is neutral, but our reasoning is somewhat solid. Soothsaying and dexterity. Our dexterity is solid, but our soothsaying is abysmal. And soothsaying and alchemy. Our alchemy is stupidly high. Our soothsaying is abysmal. So yeah, 5 seems to be the way to go. Our top choice is the purse. Which project is our second choice? The weapon or the vault? As I said, the weapon, animation, and reasoning, we probably will be able to do that. We'll probably be able to succeed in that. Soothsaying and dexterity, that one's the gamble. So for our second best chance, our second choice, 1 or 3. Winter Fairy says 1. Do we have a consensus? One. All right. So the weapon. And our third and final choice, I am assuming the vault is the one we're going for, unless someone has changed their mind on the flying machine or the pen and ink. Winter Fairy says 3. Dangerous Clement. Yeah. The vault is our third choice. The time has come to decide on the commissions, Piero says. I've been thinking about which ones I'd like. So have I, Fiammetta says, with possible premature defiance. What are your choices, Luca? Well, we must definitely make the purse for Lucrezia de Medici, and we should make the weapon for Alfonsina Orsini. As for the third, the vault for Dangerous seems like an obvious choice. It makes sense to do the purse, Piero says. And the weapon, Fiammetta says. I sense a but coming, you say. I don't think we should do the vault, Piero says. Every other client is an important person in Florence. I hate to say it, but I agree, Fiammetta says. If you can't persuade them to see it your way, you'll have to draw cards to determine the third commission. You'll all have a chance to think about the possibilities, so it won't be easy to budge Piero and Fiammetta from their positions. Are we more stubborn than they are? Which we know we're not. A little goodwill goes a long way. Or do we make a humanist case for the project? Stubborn, goodwill, or humanist? Well, I'm pretty sure we're not humanist enough. So, stubbornness, it's probably a fail state at 45%. We are slightly more opposed to adaptability. We are not a humanist. We are a faithful person. But we do have a little bit of goodwill here. So, goodwill is probably our best option. But I'm not sure any of them will work. It looks like the chat has decided on two as have I. These are traits that we've not really gone for, so wish us luck. Listen, you say with a smile. I'm happy to help you both in any way I can. I know you have the best interests of the workshop at heart. We all do. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. Let me make this choice, and I promise you, you won't regret it. We do want the best for the workshop, says Fiammetta, and you're not going to talk us out of it. Piero just stares. It becomes clear that neither of them are going to give in, and you're losing valuable time. Here, Piero says at last, pulling a battered soothsaying deck out of some pocket in his doublet. He draws the top three cards off the top and shows them: the magician, the tower, and the chariot. He shuffles them and then fans them. We'll each draw to see who gets the magician. Luca, if you get it, then we'll do the vault. If I draw it, well, then we'll do the flying machine. And if I draw it, pen and ink, Fiammetta says. Here we go. You turn the card over and see the sour-faced old magician in his cloak of red, yellow, and blue. You won the draw. The workshop will take on the vault. Phew! That was close. The commissions you've chosen won't be easy, but at least you've been able to choose the ones you want. We have 3 commissions to complete by Michaelmas, you announced to the apprentices. We will make a purse, the weapon, and the vault. The apprentices look stunned. A woman near the front raises her hand. That's too much. We won't have time. Do we even have enough supplies to do all that work? You've got to do something, or workshop morale will sink. Will we buy the apprentices a few baskets of fruit for 18 soldi, which is almost 1 lira? And we only have 2. Do we show them that we're all in this together? Do they need firm leadership now, or do we lead them in prayer? 4 is cheap, and she's right about the supplies. She is right about the supplies. We have a vote for 4. What does everyone else in chat want? Please, chat, tell me. Who suppose? All right. Time to lead them in prayer with our faith. May it be enough. It is a difficult time, you say, but with God's help, we'll get through it. This is where the breath of the divine moves. It flurries in every heap of sawdust in these corners. It nudges your plumb lines and slides your weights into position. It guides your brushes and mixes your potions. Let's all ask for help, and help will come. You hear from murmurs from the apprentices and see that their faces are calmer now. Piero and Fiammetta give you approving nods. You've kept the apprentices' spirits up. All right, says Piero. Time to get to work. Are the team... asks Luigi, a young locksmith. Fiammetta shakes her head. We'll assign them now. We'll each take turns. If Piero, Luca, or I say your team name, that's your assigned leader for the week. There are dozens of new students and assistants running around the workshop, but only 9 main apprentices divided into teams of 3. They've divided in such a way that their strengths and weaknesses are evenly matched. So that should help. Team Mandrake. Luigi is a young, dark-haired wit, born and raised in Florence to a family that's an offshoot of the Medici. He's always fiddling with locks and keys. Francesca is a potion master with wild hair, half an eyebrow missing, and deceptively blank expression. Angelo spends most of his time at the potting wheel, oblivious of the other apprentices. Team Mugwort. Giacomo can usually be found carrying a chisel and covered in marble dust. He's big, quiet, and thoughtful. Maria is the painter who brought the supplies for the fresco. She's a hard worker and a quick wit. Stefano can build anything, large or small. He once built a perfect model of the Duomo out of cherry stems. Team Moss. Valentina is a good soothsayer that you suspect she knows everyone's secrets, though she's wise enough to keep that to herself. Alina is always inventing new things and talking furiously about them to anyone who'll listen. Ignacio is more likely to put his ideas down on paper. He's always got a pencil behind his ear. Because they're evenly matched, you don't have to consider which team will do a better job on the commissions, but you can consider whose team you'd rather spend time with. Which team do you choose? Do we choose Team Mandrake, Team Mugwort, or Team Moss? Depending on which team we get is what project we'll work on. So, we are probably best for the, not necessarily the purse, the weapon, I think. Hmm. Winter Fairy says one. She wants Team Mandrake. What do we think? One has a Medici on it, politically useful. I mean, it's an offshoot of the Medici, but yes, politically useful. And we've got two Medici commissions, so it looks like Team Mandrake has won. Luigi, Francesca, and Angelo are our team. Luigi, Francesca, and Angelo smile and walk over to you. I'm glad to be working with you this week, you say. It'll be busy, but we can do it. Francesca tucks her hair behind her ears and looks determined. There's no time to lose. You should get the apprentices started on one of the commissions today. As the week goes on, you can switch between the three projects or focus on one until it's complete. You'll need supplies for all of them. You send some apprentices to check on the spare cash. Angelo returns and reports another secret for which you can thank the master. You'll have to buy the supplies with your own money or take what you can out of the storeroom or go into debt. Today, we'll start with the purse, the vault, or the weapon. Considering who we have, the purse is alchemy and soothsaying. The vault was, I don't remember. The weapon is, I don't remember. I remember the purse. I'm sorry. We should have taken notes. That's terrible. It looks like everyone has voted one. So I guess we're starting with the purse. We should have taken notes on what each one required as well as what the strengths of these three were, but we didn't. We will know for our next run. But it looks like we're trying out the purse first. It seems like we have the ability to work on any and all three of these. So if we'll see what happens. The first thing you'll need is to take stock of supplies and find a way to get anything the workshop doesn't have. To create coins out of thin air will require some difficult alchemy, as well as a bit of animation. And of course, there's the soothsaying aspect. The purse must get an accurate sense of whether the person holding it is loyal to Lucrezia de Medici. In fact, difficult alchemy is an understatement. The creation of gold from thin air is the alchemical process, the pinnacle of artistic achievement, the holy grail. Well, figuratively, since the Holy Grail itself was broken into 72 pieces by rival animators in the 14th century. There was a time when the pinnacle of alchemical achievement was not quite so base, again, figuratively speaking. There was a time when alchemists sought eternal life, much to the consternation of the priests. As they labored in this fruitless quest, some of them began working with corpses, and so the art of necromancy was born, an art that evolved into what is now animation, anything to do with corpses. The Philosopher's Stone. Yeah, no kidding, Trev. If only we could create coins from thin air, but meanwhile, Jabir ibn Hanan figured out that the Philosopher's Stone did exist, and it did have marvelous properties, just not the ones the alchemists sought. It could transmute one sort of substance into another, and so modern alchemy was born. No alchemist has ever learned how to create something from nothing, though. If the coins are to appear in the purse, they'll have to begin as something else. If it turns air into metal, the purse will create a vacuum, swallow itself, and just possibly transport anyone unlucky enough to be holding it at the time into a void. Not good for business. So the coins won't come out from thin air. They'll have to come out of tiny things, so tiny that it will seem like thin air. Dust, dirt, smoke, the oils from people's skin. Whatever the purse touches over the course of several months will soak into its fabric. That material will become the coins. The purse will clean itself, and all will be well. This process will require some fine dust from the Philosopher's Stone itself, the so-called al-iskir. I'm sorry, al-iksir. I'm not good with Arabic either. It will have to be made into a dye so it becomes part of the fabric, so that the purse can perform the alchemy on its own without a magician present. As for the soothsaying part, that will require something of Lucrezia's to be woven in, perhaps in the embroidery, so that the purse's soothsaying function is tied to Lucrezia alone. So your list of supplies includes 22 grams of elixir from the Philosopher's Stone, fine silk for the purse, mordant, pigments, and binders for the dye, thread and golden fittings for the purse, a lock of Lucrezia de Medici's hair. The silk, the threads, the gold clasps, and the ingredients for the dye can be normally found in the workshop's supply room, along with a supply of spare cash. If you dye the purse black, you'll save on supplies. You can make a black dye out of soot, iron filings, and red wine, all of which are easily found in the workshop. But Lucrezia said she'd rather have a bright color, so she might not be happy with the final product. You go to the storeroom to have a look around. The room has most of what you need. As you can see, we're locked out of the first one. We do not have the supplies for the brightly colored purse. I do not know how we could have gotten more supplies, to be honest. So we could use the workshop's supplies for a black purse. We could see the haberdasher and apothecary to bargain, ask for credit, or offer a favor. We could send an apprentice with 18 soldies of our own for a bright purse, or we could send an apprentice with 12 of our own purse. We have 2 lira, which is essentially 40 soldi to our name. We could indeed send an apprentice with 18 soldi for a bright purse and make Lucrezia de Medici happy. Or we could bargain and ask for credit or offer a favor, which will put us in debt, but it will not waste our own money, which we may need to use on other things. Oh, that's right. We did have an option for more supplies and terrible morale, and we decided no, the morale was more important. So, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Chat. 2, 3, 4, or 5. Supplies black. Debt. Buy bright or buy black. Those are my keywords, key phrases, whatever you'd like to call them. 2, 3, 4, or 5. Please tell me, what should we do? It's a hard choice. Three. Winter Fairy wants to go into debt. Yeah, we're ignoring 1. We cannot use 1. So it's 2, 3, 4, or 5. 2, 3, 4, or 5. 4. Okay. She wants to spend money for the bright purse. 3, we're going to have to get supplies for every project, so at least 1 will require us to go into debt one way or another. So start out that way is best. Trav makes a good point. Does anyone else wish to weigh in on this choice between 3 or 4? Debt or bright purse? Buying a bright purse. Anybody else? Trav is being wishy-washy. Okay. I guess we'll buy for the bright purse and go into debt later with something else. Out of the 3 projects that we have, Lucrezia Medici is the one who is currently employing our friend, our bestie, who we might want to romance later. So maybe doing her, like spending the money and the care on hers so that our friend can be helped out might be the way to go. I don't really know if that will work. We're going for it. We are spending the money. You pull the coins out of your own decidedly battered and unmagical purse and send Luigi off to buy the supplies. What color would you like the purse to be? Does it matter now, so long as it's not black? Well, I need to know whether you want orchid, Verzino, verdigris. So, since they're going to be very nice and not give us colors in Italian or Latin. Red, yellow, green, blue, or purple. I do not know if the particular shade of the purse will be problematic for the color of the coins. But yes, yellow is bright and colorful, and most certainly lends one to think of money. Purple is very royal indeed, and the Medici do rule. Yellow and gold have a sympathetic link. Yes, they do. Um, but do they have a sympathetic link in the minds of 1512 Italy? Don't know. So I have a vote for yellow and I have a vote for my favorite color, purple. Hmm. So unless anyone else wants to weigh in, I have to choose again. You guys are being so mean to me, allowing me to making me make choices. Chat, the guilt trip. Come on. Yellow or purple? Yellow or purple? I'm going with yellow. I honestly think the sympathetic link to gold bribes. It makes the most sense to me. As much as I adore purple, Winter Fairy, you know how much I am a purple person. Although I'm not wearing purple today, not that any of you can see. But we're going yellow. You guys made me pick. It's your fault. Penicilla and alum it is. That's the main supplies taken care of, but the rest won't be so simple. When it comes to the Philosopher's Stone, you'll have to be more creative. The master never kept any in the workshop because it's too valuable and would attract thieves, and because it has the volatile tendency, when stored, to turn the other things in the storage area into random objects. Oof. Once, when it was left in a work area overnight, you stumbled in one morning to find the place full of rooting, snuffling pigs, and all the tables were gone. Lucrezia would be willing to cooperate to give you the hair, although it's not a conversation you're looking forward to. You have business in the grotto outside of Florence, the one local source for the Philosopher's Stone, and you have business with Lucrezia de Medici, but that will have to wait for another day. It's the end of a long day, and as the sun sets, you sneak off to your room where you can't resist taking a longer look at the master's notebook. By the light of your ever-burning candle, you whisper a small incantation, a soothsaying spell. When you balance the book on its spine and let it fall open to the page where the master was working last. It's covered in drawings and writing, all jumbled and overlapping. Not only do the words make no sense, but the diagrams seem incomplete and nonsensical too. Across the top of the page is scrawled one word in larger letters than the rest. You rummage under your bed and find a bit of rag paper and a simple pencil, graphite wrapped in string. It takes you half an hour, a few spells, and a lot of pacing, but you work out the word at last. The machine. And that is the end of the chapter, as well as the end of the stream. We will pick up on chapter 5 tomorrow, Shadows and Secrets, but let's see where we've ended. Oh, goodness. Our health is still respectably over 50%. The workshop morale has gone up as well. So we're in a somewhat healthier state, not very healthy. We've had better health, but we're okay. We have a lira and 2 soldi left at the end of the day. We've spent some money, and the workshop is dangerously low on supplies. Oh dear. As for the work, the fresco is nearly done. The machine progress has not even been. We've quite literally just learned about the machine. So it's not begun. The commissions that we have chosen is the weapon for Alfonsini Orsini has not been started, nor has the vault for Dangereux Clement, but the magic purse for Lucrezia we've made some progress on. So it looks like we are the ones who start these projects. I don't know why that is. Alchemy is our highest magic stats, followed by animation and soothsaying at the end. As for our skills, 3 out of the 6 skills that we have here are almost 60%, which is fairly solid, but not the best they could be. Confidence is still fairly neutral. Guile is a touch over, and strength is our lowest skill. As for our traits, we are slightly adaptable, very charming, a bit bold, we have some goodwill, we have a bit of faith, and we are ordered. Solidly ordered. As for our relationships, of which we have many, Piero still likes us a bit more, Fiammetta dislikes us a little bit, Andrea dislikes us a little bit, and we've become neutral with our own mother, Stella. Giovanni di Medici still owes us a favor and likes us pretty solidly. Machiavelli is a bit fond of us. Dangerous does not like us that much. We're not in a bad place with her yet, but that's just yet. The Monticello, neutral. We've kept it neutral. Conrad, our friend, is solidly likes us, and we like him back. Alfonsina Orsini, not so happy with us, but not dangerously so. Lucrezia de Medici is starting to like us. This is a good idea. Henrique of the Congro also likes us a bit. And Dr. Judah Leon Abravanel doesn't mind us at all. I actually think that this was at 55% until we said, hey, go talk to our mother about this spirit shadow thing. As for our reputation, we're still neutral with the Medici and the confraternity. We're trying to get less neutral with the movement. We still have the respect of the people, almost solidly so, which is a good thing. If the people like our workshop, we will likely survive. As for the respect of the workshop, we've taken a hit. We've been late a little too often. We need to work on that. But the morale is up, but the respect is still, we could work on it. So that is where we end at the end of this. It's 1512 in Florence, Italy. We are Luca di Firenze, and oh boy, we are in over our head. Goodness me. So that is the end of stream today. We've run a little bit longer than we had. Chapters. Good job. Good job. Thank you so much for your help with decision making. We shall pick up with Shadows and Secrets, Chapter 5, tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern U.S. And if you are not in Eastern U.S., feel free to look up what the be. I stream Monday through Friday at 1, usually for a couple of hours. And we are fully in the story now. We are not trying to figure out what kind of person we are. Now we are fully in. We must figure out how we can survive and either in the end up running the workshop or being one of the people who does. So good luck to us. So until tomorrow, take care, everyone. It has been a joy to have you here with me. I hope to see you again tomorrow. And bye, chat.